news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, February the 8th. Good morning. I'm Chris Curries. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 19. Some sunny skies, though. Feels like minus 22. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 18. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The province's second pandemic state of emergency set to expire tomorrow, and we're hearing the Premier will today reveal plans to gradually reopen the economy. Our Kevin Meisner joins us from Queen's Park ahead of the announcement.
Premier Doug Ford is expected to unveil a gradual and regional approach to reopening Ontario's economy today. He'll be speaking at 1 o'clock this afternoon at Queen's Park. A senior government source is indicating that the state of emergency will be allowed to expire tomorrow. The stay-at-home order stays in place as regions gradually transition back to the government's color-coded restriction system. Toronto, Peel, and other COVID-19 hotspots likely won't be rejoining or reopening for another couple of weeks, at least until February 22nd. A source also telling the Canadian press that the province will introduce a so-called emergency brake system, allowing the province's top doctor to immediately move a region back into lockdown if cases there spike. I'm Kevin Meisner.
Non-essential stores, personal care salons, and museums allowed to reopen across Quebec today following a steady drop in COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations. But over the weekend, Quebec became the first province to surpass 10,000 COVID-19 deaths. Taking place this morning, an announcement on the future of the Ottawa Public Library. The Minister of Infrastructure and Communities will announce funding for enhancements to make the joint facility of the Ottawa Public Library and the Library and Archives Canada a new net zero carbon building. Catherine McKenna will be joined by the Mayor and the Chair of the Ottawa Public Library Board, Matt Luloff. McKenna calling it an exciting announcement. A couple of issues on LRT this morning. The latest, a stalled train at St. Laurent Station. OC Transpo says service on eastbound platforms only happening between St. Laurent and Blair at the moment. The third annual Winter Pride kicks off today with festivities moving online. Due to public health guidelines, Capital Pride bringing the local 2S LGBTQ plus community together virtually. It starts today with a Black Queer Perspective speaker series called Our Voices Anti-Black Racism. Organizers say the event furthers their mission to create spaces for marginalized members of the community. Winter Pride will wrap up on Friday. Health experts in the U.S. concerned football fans reveling in their sport's biggest matchup over the weekend may have been exposed to COVID-19. Reporter Eva Pilgrim has more.
Maskless mayhem. Super Bowl fans across the country going against CDC recommendations. In Tampa, Florida, scenes with dancing and partying in the streets throughout the weekend. Many not wearing masks, raising concerns the Super Bowl could be a super spreader. This as the very contagious UK variant is rapidly spreading across the country.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl championship ring last night in a 31-9 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. City News Time, 9:03. It's cold this morning. If you've been outside, you've probably noticed, and meteorologist Jill Taylor tells us that's going to be the case this week.
A cold week on the way for us. Sun and cloud today. Chance of flurries, the high -6. Flurries overnight -13, and more flurries for us tomorrow morning. Otherwise mainly cloudy and -5. Wednesday, sunshine -7. For today, the high -6.
I'm Chris Curries. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's got the news and the views.
He's got views on the news.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Winter. Winter has its claws into us now. Doesn't seem to matter where you look at in Canada. You look at the map. I mean, does anyone have friends in Western Canada? You know what they've been living through in Western Canada? It's -37 in Regina this morning, and that's before the wind chill. Okay, -33 in Winnipeg. I mean, it's more mild across Atlantic Canada. For example, it's -4 in Halifax this morning, but they're into their second day of a big snowstorm, like 30 to 50 centimeters in some places of Atlantic Canada. And as you just heard, as for our cold weather losing streak, doesn't look like we're going to get a reprieve until Wednesday of next week. Next Wednesday. You know, I was thinking, well, why? I figured it out, ladies and gentlemen. Trees. We haven't planted enough trees. 2 billion trees. We need to plant about probably 2 billion trees. You'll never have weather like this again. Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show. We're back at it on a Monday. Super Bowl Monday. What do they call it? The most unproductive day of the year. Super Bowl Monday. Welcome to it. Brand new week. Lots to cover. Lots to cover. Certainly when it comes to the pandemic, our pandemic lives, story that continues to dominate. Lockdowns, state of emergency, stay-at-home orders, curfews, vaccines, all of it. We'll cover all of it between now and noon. And we'll do it with your help. We always do that. You're always part of the program here on the Rob Snow Show during our talkback hour, an hour of phone calls and opinion. The hottest radio in town. Why not be part of it? We do it every morning. We do it every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. It's 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I love hearing from you. My email address is therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. So to me, today, the two big stories are, what is Doug Ford going to say about the lockdown? And what's the latest on vaccines? And in particular, what Mr. Trudeau and his ministers have been saying about vaccines. You know, Mr. Trudeau is basically saying everything is on track. Everything is under control. That's what he said on Friday. You know, that's one big story. The vaccines, the Trudeau government, and vaccines. And it's a story that's not going away anytime soon. I mean, this is the story. It's the most important story. And while our health and well-being is supposed to be central to the story, right? It is life and death, after all. It's also all very political. And I think this Trudeau government, you better hope it can get the ship going in the right direction sometime soon when it comes to vaccine distribution in this country and vaccine deliveries. Or it might find out soon enough Canadians might not be as forgiving as they have been so far. And remember, there's all kinds of speculation that for some reason Mr. Trudeau would love nothing more than to trigger an election. Drag us all to the polls. And, I'm starting to wonder, maybe the shambles of a vaccine rollout might actually mean the election comes sooner rather than later. I'm starting to wonder, and I'm starting to think we could be voting in an election come April. You picture it, okay? This scenario unfolding over the next month or so, okay? Get a big shipment of vaccines arrives in March. Millions of doses arrives as promised in March. See, I told you, Mr. Trudeau can claim. There was nothing to worry about. And, Canadians, we were all back on the nightly newscasts, getting our shots, and presto, whammo, bammo, Trudeau triggers the election. Right? Does that sound outrageous? Fictitious? I don't think so. But I keep wondering as well, how realistic is this time frame that Mr. Trudeau keeps sticking to? September. Mr. Trudeau keeps saying Canadians who want to get vaccinated by September will be able to get vaccinated by September. I don't know. I'm no math genius, but I was running some numbers this morning, and I don't know. I don't know if it's really the case. I hope so. I really do. Don't get me wrong. I want our vaccine program to work. I don't think it's been working very well so far, and I lament that. And I've been hammering away on it because I want us to be doing better. I want us to succeed. I want us to be as good as the Americans, to be as good as the Brits. Our American friends are closing in on 40 million doses administered in the United States. I counted this morning at least 10 individual American states have given more vaccine doses to their people than we have managed to do across the entire country. The state of North Carolina, for example, population 10.5 million people, a population of Canada more than 38 million people. 10.5 million people in North Carolina, as it's administered more doses of vaccine across North Carolina than we have all across Canada. We've barely hit the 1 million mark. You know, David and I, we should do a road trip. David, we'll go down, we'll play some golf, get some vaccines, and hightail it back to Canada, sneak across the border. Is that even allowed? Do the $2,000 hotel thing for a few days?
I'll submit a budget claim.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. But look, again, the math, okay? If we want to give everyone over the age of 15 years old in this country just one dose of vaccine, let alone two, just one dose of vaccine by the end of the year. And by the end of the year, forget about September, okay? Let's be generous and say by the end of December. Well, we have to be doing 2.6 million shots a month. We're barely doing 500,000 right now. 667,000 Canadians over the age of 15 every week would need to get a shot for the next 47 weeks. Right? And then we'd hit 32 million. And then we can look at the other 6 million Canadians that are actually under the age of 15 and figure out when it's their turn. See, we have a long way to go, don't we? We have a long way to go, and read the news, people. We have a short time to get there. I know the case numbers, they're trending in the right direction lately. Case counts, hospitalizations, the death toll. Those numbers are actually going down, and hey, that's good news. But then there's the news about these variants and how contagious they are. And then there are these headlines this morning about the AstraZeneca vaccine, the Oxford vaccine, and how, at least against the South African variant of coronavirus, it's not very effective. And that's a story that we're certainly keen on here on the Rob Snow Show, because at least one study says that that particular vaccine is not effective at protecting people against that particular variant of the virus. And that variant of the virus is what? It's in Canada now. And the first known person with that variant, no travel history. They didn't travel. They don't know anyone who traveled. So how did they get it? It's in the community. Community spread, most likely. Which brings us to our second big story, and that's, what is Doug Ford going to say today? Given all of these moving parts, what is Doug Ford supposed to do in this lose-lose situation that he's in? This tug of war, right, between business owners and health officials. What to do when it comes to reopening the economy. Hey, stop me if you've heard that one before. He's going to reopen the economy. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Reopening the economy. It's like being on a roller coaster. It's like being on a merry-go-round. It's like you're the string in the yo-yo. Open, close, open, close, open, close. It's enough to make you dizzy. And for some business owners, I honestly don't know how you deal with it all. If the news reports are on the money, and there's no reason to think they aren't on the money, well-placed people are whispering things in reporters' ears. Queen's Park is a leaky place sometime, but if the news reports are accurate, Premier Ford will announce this afternoon that the economy will reopen gradually and regionally. Stop me if you've heard this one before. There are regions where the virus situation is well in hand. Those regions will get to reopen first. Stop me if you've heard this one before. State of emergency will be lifted. Stay-at-home order remains in effect. What does that even mean? I did a quick look at where Ontario was when the stay-at-home order came into effect. You could argue it's been effective. January 14th, it came into effect. There were 3,200 cases that day. 3,200 cases. Yesterday, the number in Ontario was a little more than 1,500. get a new number in about an hour from now. But case counts chopped in half during the stay-at-home order, and now it looks like the Premier is going to gradually and regionally reopen the economy, and this latest lockdown will soon come to an end. Stop me if you've heard this one before. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Snowsuit Fund is in almost its 40th year. We've been helping low-income families keep children warm during our cold winters in Ottawa. Last season, we distributed over 16,000 snowsuits to families in our Ottawa area. Well, it originally started with just a handful of snowsuits being handed out, and it has now grown to 16,000 each year. All families must qualify for a snowsuit. We have a eligibility criteria that we follow, and it's based on low income. We follow the Stats Canada guidelines. If families are receiving assistance, they receive a snowsuit from us if they need one. We are no government funding. We are supported by the community. All our donations come from generous supporters in the community. People can donate directly to the Snowsuit Fund. $50 buys a brand new snowsuit for a child in need. Online, you can do through Canada Helps or directly through the Snowsuit Fund. Well, the Snowsuit Fund has really had to change its operation this season with the physical distancing. Normally, we have many families coming in at the same time. We are now by appointment only. We don't know if our numbers will increase, but we expect that they will go up this season. Unfortunately, this season we are not able to have the volunteers due to the spacing. Last season we had over 700 volunteers, but this year we have only allowing 8 volunteers, and they have to be continual volunteers on a regular basis. So we're not changing and introducing new people in the depot.
It's just a great charity to get involved in, and it's really when you come here and see what happens at the depot that it really starts to hook you when you see people walk in. I mean, it's changed a lot this year in terms of how the depot is working, but I was here in the days when families would show up and there could be anywhere from a mother and a single child to 12 family members, getting snowsuits and running back to the warehouse and getting different colors and different sizes. And the one constant that has always stuck with me is when you take a snowsuit out and you see a child's face. I mean, if you want to see some bright eyes and some wide grins, it's amazing. When they leave here, they're just incredibly happy.
Well, I think this year with COVID, I think it's very important that children have the opportunity to play outside and have a warm snowsuit. And thanks to the generous community, we are fortunate to provide these snowsuits to them. And I hope that once again we can count on their support.
Icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
1 o'clock is the Premier's news conference today, where he is expected to announce that he will gradually reopen the Ontario economy on a regional basis. From the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Dan Kelly is back with me on the Rob Snow Show on City News. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
What would you like to hear this afternoon from Premier Ford?
Well, look, there's all weekend long I've been getting calls from business owners in various regions of Ontario really worried that their region is not going to be in the first wave of reopening expected later this week. But what we want to hear is a pathway for all businesses to get open. The expectation is that we'll return to the kind of the green, gray, red zone restrictions that were there in the past, which means that some businesses may be allowed to open in the weeks ahead, but certainly not all. So the big question for us is, will restaurants for indoor dining be allowed anytime soon? Will gyms be allowed to open? Will hair salons? Retailers we expect would be among the first that would be able to open when their region is affected. But gosh, there's a bunch of business owners that are really hanging on by the skin of their teeth and will be parsing every word of the Premier's press conference today.
And after all of these many months now, and it's almost approaching 1 year, really, getting close to that, 11 months now, how perilous is it for so many small businesses right now, Dan Kelly?
Many business owners are absolutely desperate. The sectors that have been most affected, retail, the hospitality sector, which includes hotels and restaurants, arts and recreational businesses like the bowling alley or a kids' play center, theaters, and of course, beyond that, personal services, hair salons, nail salons, tattoo parlors.
Right.
These businesses have been, of course, were among the first affected by COVID in the first wave, earliest to be shut down in the second wave, and we don't expect all of those businesses will be allowed to open even once these plans are announced. We're still likely weeks or months away, and I can tell you, business owners tell me they have days or hours left, not weeks or months, to remain in shutdown. But I got to tell you, my expectation is even once these businesses are allowed to be technically open, it's not like a flood of customers is going to be coming back. I mean, for one thing, we're still dealing with the pandemic.
Yep.
Secondly, this is the slowest season for many of these businesses to begin with.
Yeah. When you hear, well, the state of emergency will basically be allowed to lapse and expire as scheduled tomorrow, but the stay-at-home order will remain in effect. What does that mean for you? How do you read that? You say you're going to parse the language. I guess that's one of the things that we will have to parse.
It looks like this. The province-wide restrictions will be replaced with regional restrictions.
Right.
I expect that, as I understand it, the people will be expected to stay at home in most of Ontario as of Wednesday, except for a few regions like Kingston and a few others that will be put into the green zone, as media is reporting. Second, then next week, likely right after Family Day, much of the rest of the province, I'm assuming Ottawa would be in that group, would be allowed to reopen, likely retail and a few other sectors of the economy. And then the following week, I guess that's the week of the 22nd, Toronto, Peel, and York would be allowed to a slow reopening. But in each of these waves, I don't see the province opening up restaurants right away, opening up gyms right away. I think those will be in further waves once the first bit is allowed to happen. And for many of those businesses, they're saying, why? I mean, for goodness sakes, we should be able to, at this late stage of the pandemic, find safe pathways. Nobody's talking about eliminating restrictions, but find safe pathways to get more and more of these business sectors open.
And when I think about Toronto and Peel in particular, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, they've been in some form of lockdown. Gosh, it must be 75, 80 days now. Really.
Absolutely. And if you add up the spring lockdowns to that and the other restrictions that have been placed throughout the year, there are many, many sectors of the economy that will have been closed for more days than they will have been open over the course of a full year of the pandemic. Think about that. How on earth is a business to survive, even with maximum utilization of every subsidy program that is out there, federal and provincial?
Yeah.
There's just not enough money to keep these businesses going. And here's what I predict to happen. In the months ahead, these businesses will be open and customers slowly coming back. But the businesses involved will have to make, let's say it's May, you're going to have to make enough money to pay your May bills, and you're going to have to try to find some extra money to pay back the COVID debt that you've accumulated over the last number of months. And that, for the average small business, is $100,000. So that's when a lot of these businesses are going to tumble into bankruptcy. We've actually seen fewer bankruptcies than were expected to this point. There's been 60,000. But we at CFIB are predicting 180,000 additional businesses to fail before the end of the pandemic.
Yeah, and who knows when the end of the pandemic is going to be.
Well, look, and with vaccines seemingly getting the date for...
Well, I mean, it's the vaccine rollout is not really going all that well. There are all sorts of worries about variants, as you know, and all of this stuff, right? So now let me ask you, kind of sticking with the business here, as you know, there's a great verbal tug of war happening between the federal government and the Ontario government right now on the issue of paid sick days. And the Ford government remains under intense pressure with the return of the legislature looming to do something about paid sick days.
You know,
what do you think about that, Dan? What do you think about
I'm getting sick of talking about sick days. I
Really?
tell you,
Okay.
This was one of the first things that was seemingly solved at the beginning of the pandemic, and nobody talked about it for like 10 months. I mean, the federal government, the provinces raised with the feds that, and rightly so, that there are many, many employees, often in small and medium-sized companies, that don't have paid sick time. And therefore, if you're going to ask them to stay home to quarantine, or if they are sick or fear to be sick of COVID, you've got to give them some income support. So the feds and the provinces worked together, hustled to put in place the Canada Emergency Sickness Benefit. And that has been in place for almost the entire pandemic. It provides 2 weeks of paid time.
Yeah.
I get that it may not be fast enough or it may not be generous enough, but let's focus on fixing the bloody program we have rather than trying to create a program. And if anybody thinks that this is a good time for a small and medium-sized firm to have to pick up additional costs, they need to go and walk down a main street anywhere in the province of Ontario.
Yeah, this is a key point that you're making here. See, the worry is that with the government benefit, you have to apply for it, and there can be a delay. So they want the onus put more on the employer, right?
Sure.
Well, I just have how many employers, especially small employers who typically would not offer paid sick days, how many of them are actually in a position to assume a brand new kind of social benefit right now? Probably not too many, right?
Not too many at all. And look, employers actually supported the creation of this special benefit during COVID. So it's not like we're sitting on our hands here. And again, I've said to unions that have been slamming businesses for not offering paid sick days or slamming governments for not insisting on it, I've been asking, okay, let's say under ordinary times, you might think that all these business owners are just too cheap to pay for paid sick time. I can tell you that's not true in ordinary times, but it's even less true today. Because business owners are literally failing every single day and hour. So maybe a plan could be hatched where the employer pays the sick time up front and puts that employee on immediately, and then that's reimbursed through the EI system. But where are these ideas from unions and others that are pushing them? And they've worked up public health officials and taken their eye off of the ball of helping us to prevent the COVID emergency and focusing them on public policy, which to me makes no sense.
Okay. I know you'll be watching it. We'd be glad to have your reaction to it at some later date down the road here, Dan. Thank you.
Great. Happy to do it.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Dan Kelly from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. When we come back, we're going to focus on something a little bit different, and that's what's going to happen later this week at the Wednesday council meeting when this whole issue of the 445 hectares near Carlsbad Springs comes up for a vote, and the Algonquins of Ontario Taggart development could get a yay or nay from your city council. That's in focus for us next here on The Rob Snow Show, Rogers TV, and City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, February the 8th. Good morning. I'm Chris Curries. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 18. It's mostly sunny skies. Feels like minus 24. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 15. Feels like minus 21. Here's what's making news this hour. The Premier expected to reveal plans on reopening the economy gradually today. A stay-at-home order likely to stay in effect, but regions will gradually transition back to the province's color-coded system of restrictions. Ottawa likely to be in the second phase of reopening. Sources say next week is the target date. The announcement scheduled for 1 o'clock. So what would Dan Kelly like to see? The head of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business wants to see restaurants opening, although he doesn't expect them to be part of the relaxing of restrictions. He notes they can operate safely, but the bigger concern is the likely lack of customers, since this is a much quieter time of year. In Gatineau, restrictions being loosened today and across Quebec. Non-essential businesses and malls open today, with provincial guidelines for health and safety in place as well. A man wanted in a fraud investigation has turned himself into Ottawa police. Marc-Andre Levesque was wanted on theft and fraud charges related to his time as a store manager at an East End business. Police say the investigation is ongoing. And Canadians have gone 5 for 5 in the first round of the Australian Open so far. Marino, Andreescu, Shapovalov, Oj Aliassime and Raonic. Another 2 Canucks, though, have yet to play their first round matchups down under later tonight. City News Time 9:32. I'm Chris Curries. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, this has turned into a raging debate now. The future of the so-called Taywin development. This is the proposal from the organization known as the Algonquins of Ontario and their development partner, Taggart, 445 hectares near the Amazon Fulfillment Center near Carlsbad Springs. The city council has said that all of this is being done in the spirit of reconciliation. It all comes to a head at the next city council meeting. Joining us this morning is Verna Polson, Grand Chief, Algonquin Anishinabeg Nation Tribal Council. Good morning, Grand Chief.
Hi, good
I hope
morning.
I did that okay. I've been practicing that all morning, but probably not. But okay.
Good.
I thank you for your time this morning. Your tribal council, can you tell me about it? Who is part of it, please?
Yes, our tribal council is located in the Maniwaki and Anishinabeg. We have 7 communities as a part of our tribal council. And there's also another tribal council, which is called Algonquin Nation Secretariat, which is 3 other communities are part of this tribal council as well.
Okay.
And these tribal councils are in Quebec.
In Quebec, yes. In Quebec, Maniwaki, about 130 kilometers or so north of Ottawa, right?
Right.
Kitigan-Zibi, right? Kitigan-Zibi, yeah. What do you think of this development, Grand Chief?
Well, I'm not sure of what's going on. Absolutely not. They talk about reconciliation.
Yes.
And I agree with Chief Dylan Whitebuck when he says it is reconciliation.
Right, like as in wreckage, Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So we've been working with the city of Ottawa for many years now. Our nation is discussing a protocol with the city. And also our nation flag flies in front of the City Hall of Ottawa. It's been there now for a couple of years, and every year they we would raise our flag, but now it's there permanently. So, all the work that has been done can seriously harm the future of our relationship with the City Hall of Ottawa. It's very upsetting, but we can also.
Grand Chief, if I could just interrupt there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why is it so upsetting? Is it because you feel as though you weren't consulted? Is it because about what it could do to future land claims? Give us some insight into that, please.
Yes, absolutely. Giving the land to the AO is not reconciliation, because the Algonquins are not. the AOs are not Algonquins. Only the Pikwakanagan is recognized First Nation. AOO is a non-Indigenous peoples appropriating our peoples, the communities, and our nation. The AOO is created of a government, a corporation. It was created.
It's a real estate corporation. Right?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And they do not have Section 35 rights, and they are not the right holders. The Algonquin Nation, we are underneath the Constitution of 35. We are the right holders of this land, the Algonquin Nation. So, for the City Hall of Ottawa to make a deal with a corporation, what does that say? And not only that, Minister Bennett and the Prime Minister, also the government, they can't let this continue. This is the rights of the First Nations. It's important that they don't sign this agreement that's going to be discussed. Or the City Hall of Ottawa needs to be reminded who are the First Nations of this territory, the landholders of...
But what about Grand Chief? What about Chief Jocko, the chief of the Pikwakanagan First Nation, who's told news outlets that she thinks that this partnership between the AOO and Taggart is a positive step toward reconciliation? How do you answer to that opinion of Chief Jocko?
Yes, we know that Chief Jocko's position, but we disagree.
Okay.
This is a shady deal, the mayor's office and the developer under the reconciliation to corporate called AOO. It's fishy when so many stars align at the last minute. For this deal to happen, Chief Jocko knows that the lies that she. I'm just very. I know the position of her.
You find the whole thing. It sounds to be a bit dubious by the sounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
And we've done genealogical analysis of the AO membership, and we can prove that they are non-status, who only claims to be Algonquin. If these are standards of the process that we need to prove to be Algonquin. The government created a double standard. And it's about to be it's about to be exposed. So they need they need this done before the truth comes out, right?
I have heard it said, Grand Chief, in recent days, and I would like to know if you think that this is accurate, that it would be easier for somebody to claim that they were of Algonquin ancestry to be part of AOO than it is to be a status Indian. Is that true? Under AOO?
Yeah, it seems like, they go back 200-300 years, and the Algonquin people's been here for forever. We're not planning to go anywhere.
Right.
This is our traditional territory. Our ancestors, they fought diligently for our people, and still yet today, the Algonquins, the true Algonquin Anishinabeg, we still got to prove to the government that we are First Nations, but still yet they're willing to make the AIP agreement. They're ready to sign on the dotted line with the Algonquins of Ontario. Pequawkanagan are the true First Nations here. They have 900 communities that don't have a reserve, and still yet they say, well, we weren't given a reserve, and did they really try to, petition a community, a reserve? Probably not. But I tell you this, there's one community that is recognized under the Constitution 35, and they don't have a base reserve right now, but still yet the government of Canada is willing to extinguish our rights, and the AO is willing to extinguish our rights as well as First Nations of this territory, in this land claim.
Okay. Grand Chief, I hate to interrupt again, but our time is short, and I want to understand as much of this as I can. Mm-hmm. Say somebody listening in Ottawa right now or in the Ottawa Valley, mm-hmm. and they're listening to you and me, and they might be thinking, well, she's from Kitigan-Zibi. She's from up near Maniwaki. She's up 130 kilometers north up in Quebec. What business is it of that, Grand Chief? What goes on with a parcel of land near Carlsbad Springs? How do you respond to that in Ontario? As I understand it, it's because of territory. Whether it's Ontario or Quebec, it's about what the Algonquin territory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand your question.
Okay.
Absolutely, for sure. Our ancestors traveled the Ottawa River all their lives. And before the European had landed, there was no border here. There was no border. The government and the provincial government had established those borders in between our Ottawa River. So really, we have every right and every say that, that what affects our territory here on both sides of the rivers. It wasn't the Algonquin people, our ancestors, that put those borders, between the rivers. So I think we have every right to speak on especially when it comes to our land base. Our land base is very vast. It goes right to the two mountains, Montreal, to the Quebec City area. The Algonquin people have a big traditional territory. It's vast. It's huge, and this is what we need to understand, that we need to make sure that the Ottawa, Gatineau, the cities know who we are as Algonquin people, and our history, and that's another important we need to address, is who we are as Algonquin people.
Okay.
And I think and that's the lack of information that's being sent out there of who we are. So we're 11 strong communities, First Nation communities, Algonquin and Anishinabeg people. We have 9 in Quebec and 2 in Ontario. So, and we've been here forever, and which I probably repeated myself. I'm going to repeat myself. The AOOs, they've only been a part of, they're not even a party of the Algonquins,
Right.
It's only been maybe a few years now that they existed. But this land claim with the AIP, that's another issue. They're going to be extinguishing our rights as First Nations of this land, and that's not right.
It sounds as though the mayor is not swayed by any of this, Mayor Jim Watson, and this could pass on Wednesday, and these lands could be approved, and this development could be approved. If that happens, what do you think should happen next? What would be some options in your opinion?
Well, it'd be very sad if this get approved on Wednesday. I would like to see the city council to postpone the decision, on Wednesday.
Okay.
That's the first thing. And the consultation process, we were never consulted on this process as the landholders of this land. So, there's many discussion that needs to take place, and they have to hear why we are opposing this project with the AOs. They need to understand of who we represent as well as the Algonquin leadership. We have 20,000+ members that we need to make sure that that our people are presented, in this Ottawa or wherever this situations are being placed, and Mayor Watson needs to really consider postponing this decision on Wednesday. We were trying to meet with him this week, and so far I haven't heard or received any response to the letter I sent to him last week.
Oh, okay.
That leadership, we need to sit down and talk with this city council before Wednesday. That's for sure.
Thank you, Grand Chief. All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Grand Chief Verna Polson. Rob Snow Show, City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring, and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box, as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years, and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
How could the government improve its communications with Canadians, its communication strategy with Canadians when it comes to the pandemic? Bernard Gauthier is with me, strategic communication consultant, lecturer in the School of Journalism and Communication at Carleton University. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
In reading your piece for policy options, one old line comes to mind, and it's too many cooks. Too many cooks.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of have
Absolutely.
too many cooks, and that's the nature of federalism, right? Because we have provincial governments and national governments, and they all don't speak with the same voice from time to time, as you well know. But you advocate that coordination is needed here, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think coordination between, you're right, the federal government, which runs both Health Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada, 10 provincial governments, and municipal governments, right? Think how active the City of Ottawa's Public Health Department is. And that's just on the government side. And then we have hospitals, we have health professionals, we have advocacy groups. I mean, there are so many voices that are sort of embroiled and tangled in this campaign that it's very difficult for people, I think, to get a sense of whose campaign is this anyway, right? Who's actually running this right now? And we even see sometimes at lunch hour, where there'll be 2 or 3 different media conferences going on at the same time, and networks trying to figure out, well, whose media conference should we be airing right now? So too many voices is not helpful at all, and especially when they don't talk necessarily the same language. Some provinces talk about color coding their crisis levels. Others call it Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And even the numbers. I did a quick look this morning on 3 different websites to see how many cases of COVID-19 were discovered, if you will, yesterday, were diagnosed yesterday in the City of Ottawa. I came up with 3 different numbers. So they were close, but they're not actually exactly.
That's so frustrating. That's so frustrating because, I'm preparing for my show every morning and, trying to tune it out over the weekend and then getting prepared for a radio program on Monday. And I see this morning it's 58, and I thought for sure in the news I heard yesterday that it was 70, and I was like, well, is it 58? Is it 70? So it's interesting that you key into that. But also. Mr. Gauthier, after 11 months of this now, there must be so much fatigue is setting in, and you call it indifference, and I just wonder how much we're just kind of tuning it out altogether.
I think we are tuning it out, and I'm happy to see that some levels of government are recognizing that they need to communicate in an entirely different way. And we're starting to see new spots. I saw a great one out of the province of Alberta, where it's a young person's party, and one of the characters has a big COVID head. His head is shaped like a COVID virus.
You thought that was effective?
I thought, it's quirky, it's unusual, and it just might get attention. I think the new Government of Canada spot that talks about, when you do this, and it shows people washing their hands and, wearing a mask, remember this. And it takes us back to memories of weddings and family dinners and being, going out to a club or a hockey game. And I think that kind of emotional tug, let's agree that this is difficult, and let's show people that, there is hope. And I think that kind of emotional message that resonates with how people are feeling right now is much more effective than another chart of numbers or another press conference and people just talking about policy and scolding the public. So we need to change the way we talk about COVID-19 if we want to engage the public, because you're right, it's been a long pandemic. It's going to go on for many more months by all accounts. And people are tuning it out. And so we need to change the way we talk if we want to re-engage the audience, and I think we have to. then we need to change the way we're talking about it.
You think the use of celebrities is helpful?
I think
generally speaking?
Generally speaking, celebrities have two things going for them. One is they get our attention, right? When they come across the screen, we say, oh, it's William Shatner or whichever celebrity. And so you stop and you pay attention. And celebrities, depending on the particular topic, often have a fair bit of credibility. And that, that comes from the kind of characters they've played and the way they've lived their lives. So it varies, but some celebrities have a lot of credibility. And so when you can get attention and speak with some credibility, it can be an effective way. I don't think it's the only way, but it could be an effective way, especially if you're trying to reach a young audience that is just so difficult. They live in media, they live in communication every day, and they can pick and choose, right, as they're flipping on their cell phone. They get to decide what they're going to pay attention to. That's where a celebrity might be helpful.
When you think of the current politicians, for example, can you think of an effective communicator? For example, Doug Ford, for example, is going to do a news conference today at 1 o'clock where he's expected to announce a gradual reopening of the economy, and he's known for his kind of folksy everyman language, blue-collar type language, I guess.
And I'll be honest, I think Ford does a fairly good job because of all the politicians, he's probably the one who's most likely to empathize.
Okay.
To say he understands it's hard for small businesses, it's hard for employees, it's hard for people. And so he does a good job of empathizing. My concern with Doug Ford, and frankly with all the politicians, is that they figure their best way to communicate is a news conference at around the lunch hour, right, which is where everyone wants to be. And I can tell you, the 20 to 29-year-olds that I know, and I have two kids who are in that age group, never watch news at lunch hour. I mean, they just do not, right? I asked them both. I said, have you seen any media conference by Trudeau or Doug Ford? And they both laughed, like, of course not. And so if you look at the tables, they show us sort of the age groups that the new cases come by. The biggest segment is that 20 to 29-year-olds. That's where most of the new cases are coming from, and yet politicians are happy to give a press conference at lunch hour.
Right.
And so
but empathize, walk a mile in their shoes, so to speak.
Absolutely, empathy is so important. This is hard, right? I mean, social needs are very, very important to human beings. When people have to isolate themselves, that's usually a punishment, right? What do we say to our child who gets in trouble? Go to your room. And yet what we're being told by governments right now is go to your house, go to your apartment, and don't leave. And so it feels like punishment because we're social animals. We need to connect with people, and that's very, very hard to do right now.
Yeah, and we're sick and tired of being told we're grounded.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get some good news this afternoon, although we'll see.
I hope so. Thank you, Mr. Gauthier. Thank you.
Hey, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bernard Gauthier is an independent strategic communications consultant and a sessional lecturer in the School of Journalism and Communication at Carleton University. The Talkback Hour is coming up next. We're talking about vaccines. We're talking about stay-at-home orders, states of emergency on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, February the 8th. Good morning. I'm Chris Curries. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 18 degrees, mostly sunny, feels like minus 24. Smiths Falls, a bit warmer, still cold though, minus 15, feels like minus 21. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. With the provincial state of emergency set to expire tomorrow, we're expecting the Premier to outline the path to reopening today. Our Irene Precklett joins us with more details.
That update from the Premier is set for 1 this afternoon. This with the state of emergency expiring tomorrow unless it is renewed. But sources say Doug Ford will allow the state of emergency to expire and announce a gradual reopening. But a stay-at-home order will remain in effect as regions gradually transition back to the province's color-coded system of restrictions. 4 regions with few cases of COVID-19 are expected to go back to the least restrictive green phase of reopening on Wednesday. Other regions will transition back in the coming weeks. Toronto, Peel, and York regions are expected to be among the places that lag behind. I'm Irene Precklett.
So what might the reopening look like? Dan Kelly with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business.
As I understand it, people will be expected to stay at home in most of Ontario as of Wednesday, except for a few regions like Kingston and a few others that will be put into the green zone, as media is reporting. Second, then next week, likely right after Family Day, much of the rest of the province, I'm assuming Ottawa would be in that group, would be allowed to reopen, likely retail and a few other sectors of the economy.
He says he'd like to see in-person dining reopen, but admits he doesn't expect that to be the case. Now, several businesses reopening across the country today as other provinces loosen pandemic restrictions. Momin Qureshi is taking a look at that story.
As we wait to find out what's going to happen here in Ontario, other provinces already have their wheels in motion. We know in Alberta, they're going to resume things like one-on-one fitness training at gyms, opening phys ed classes, as well as minor sports and practices. However, they're not going to let those minor sports leagues play games, so they are slowly doing the reopening. Meantime, in Quebec, we also know they're going to open non-essential stores, personal care salons, and let museums reopen. So it's clear other provinces are making what could be similar moves to what we find out here in Ontario this afternoon, starting to slowly open things up as the numbers and case counts continue to decline. I'm Momin Qureshi.
An Algonquin Grand Chief panning a controversial land development in the Gold Belt. An open letter was sent to the mayor last week that outlines their disappointment with City Council and the mayor on a lack of consultation. And Verna Polson tells City News she has yet to hear back regarding the letter. The Algonquin and Anishinabeg Nation Tribal Council tells the Rob Snow Show the City Council decision on Wednesday should be postponed.
It would be very sad if this get approved on Wednesday. You know, I would like to see the City Council to postpone the decision, on Wednesday.
Okay.
That's the first thing. And the consultation process, we were never consulted on this process.
She says this decision extinguishes their rights and the city needs to hear why they are opposing the project. City News time 10:04. There's a brisk feeling in the air, and as meteorologist Jill Taylor tells us, that's going to be the case this week.
A cold week on the way for us. Sun and cloud today. Chance of flurries, the high -6. Flurries overnight -13, and more flurries for us tomorrow morning. Otherwise mainly cloudy and -5. Wednesday, sunshine -7. For today, the high -6.
City News time 10:04. And this just in to City News. We have 1,265 new cases of COVID-19 just announced on this latest daily reporting update for the province. 50 cases in Ottawa, Public Health, 0 in Renfrew, 1 in Leeds. This is according to provincial reporting. We'll have the full breakdown at 10:30 and 11 o'clock. City News time is 10:04. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
We're going to talk about the Prime Minister. We're going to talk about the Premier. Vaccines, stay-at-home orders, states of emergency. The Prime Minister says our vaccine program is on track. It's on track. Do you think it's on track? And think about what he means by on track. He means millions of doses will arrive in March, and you My good listeners, you can be vaccinated. If you so desire, you'll be vaccinated by September. Do you think our vaccination program is on track? This is what the Prime Minister said on Friday.
We knew that short-term delays would be a possibility, so we planned accordingly. But I hear it from all Canadians right now.
Accordingly. We planned
People
accordingly.
are worried. People are tired of this pandemic. They want to know when this winter is going to be over. They want to know when they can go back to everything they've done before. They want to know mostly when their grandparents are going to be safe, when the vaccines are going to come. That's why there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of noise going on right now. That's why I want to reassure Canadians that we are on track.
We are on track. We are on track. This is what on track looks like, okay? And with Premier Ford, big day for him, 1 o'clock. You can hear it here on City News at 1 o'clock. Could end the state of emergency, set to lapse tomorrow midnight. And then the economy will gradually and regionally reopen. Do you agree or disagree with that decision given the current state of the pandemic? 750-1310, 750-1310. 613-750-1310. Email therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. Yeah, it's another Monday, another talkback hour. This is your hour. Vaccines, still the big story, even on this Super Bowl Monday. Developments on that story with each passing day. The Prime Minister, everything is on track. Everything is on track. Our plan is working. The Prime Minister on Friday On track, on track. Do you consider this vaccine program to be on track, in your opinion? He talks about noise. Well, there's a lot of noise. That Rob Snow guy, he's noisy. Aaron O'Toole, he's noisy. Michelle Rempel-Gardner, she's noisy. Everybody's noisy. They're getting worked up over nothing. Stop being so impatient. Just need to hang in there a little bit longer. Have some faith. Your government really does know what it's doing. Everything is under control. Everything's on track. Everything is on track. Is that how you see it? On track? Does this vaccine program appear to be on track, in your opinion? I mean, some of the day's news headlines, ladies and gentlemen, really not all that encouraging. I'm not in the business of setting off alarm bells. There's no need to cause a panic or anything. That's not my intention, but sometimes it just seems so often we are a step or two behind in what is always a race against time. I mean, we have multiple news organizations running with this massive story this morning about the AstraZeneca vaccine and the South African variant of the virus. South Africa has stopped using the AstraZeneca vaccine because at least, and this was the story I read in the Washington Post this morning, it offers minimal protection against that particular variant of the virus. This is in the Washington Post today. Quote, South Africa will suspend use of the corona vaccine being developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca after researchers found that it provided minimal protection against mild to moderate coronavirus infections caused by the new variant first detected in that country. Quote, officials had been eager to begin vaccinating healthcare workers with the shots. 1 million doses arrived last week. Quote, data disclosed at a news conference Sunday showed that once the variant became dominant in the country in November, the vaccine provided no significant protection against illness, though all of the cases of the disease were mild or moderate, end quote. So, it's one study, end quote. It's one study. It's a small sample size, about 2,000 people, findings not peer-reviewed. So there are these caveats there, but still, you would like to hear better news than that. It's not great news. Not for South Africa. Not for Canada, for that matter. I mean, that AstraZeneca vaccine, how often have we talked about that? That's the one we've actually tapped COVAX for. 1.9 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from that program. My friend Geoffrey Johnston and I are going to disagree on that today, I suspect. He's with the Kingston Whig-Standard. And now that variant has been found in a case in Canada, the South African variant, linked to cases in Canada, small numbers. This is City News Toronto, our friend City News in Toronto. The first cases of both the South African and Brazilian variants have been found in Toronto, according to Toronto Public Health. And with this South African variant, Toronto Public Health says the person with that form of the virus, no recent travel history, no history of contact with anyone who had a travel history. So what does that mean? It leads you to think it's spreading in the community already. And for how many weeks have we been warned about these new variants and how they're more contagious? And now there's this fear. One of the weapons against this dreaded disease, one of the vaccines, AstraZeneca, doesn't work very well against one of the variants, South African variant. South Africa not even using it now. I know, it's all very depressing. It's not the greatest way to start the Talkback Hour for a brand new week. It's kind of a downer of a news story. But that's where we are. Sometimes the news is ugly. But the Prime Minister says, just by the last 2 or 3 seconds there, David,
when the vaccines are going to come. That's why there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of noise going on right now.
A lot of noise.
That's why I want to reassure Canadians that we are on track.
We're on track. We're on track, okay? Nothing to worry about here. I suppose. What would you expect him to say when it comes to the vaccine? You think he's going to come out there? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rideau Cottage. Holy cow, did I mess up? No, I don't think so. But on track, really? Is this vaccine program on track, in your opinion? On track, meaning millions of doses by March and you get vaccinated by September? What's your gut tell you? Dave in Ottawa, thank you for calling. You're on City News.
Yeah, this is my concern.
All right.
That he comes up with the 6 million doses by the end of March, calls the election in April, gets his majority because people will say, well, he told the truth. We got 6 million.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Calls the election and it gets a majority, and then we get nothing by September, and then we're stuck with it for the next 4 years. Nothing we can do.
Just so crazy, it just might work, and I think you might be onto something there.
And because Tom Mulcair, in fact, he even brought that up last Tuesday. Apparently, the same thing that he said he somehow or another he always pulls a rabbit out of the hat, that he under-delivers and over-promises, and that's my concern. That even if you just take the vaccine away, he does not deserve to be a leader of this country. I mean, the man's a racist. He's a liar. He's anti-feminist, and if the vaccine doesn't come through, I can guarantee you, Anita Anand's gone. The other lady from
What do you mean? What do you mean? She's gone.
They'll lose their posting. They'll lose their cabinet posting.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I mean, they're going to get blamed. I mean, every woman, the latest.
Oh, they'll have to take the fall for him.
Yeah, he never takes the fall, right?
Okay. So, not yet, anyway.
No, but that's my concern, is that he gets.
No, but I mean, I think not that I agree with everything that you're saying, but certainly on the time frame and the whole scenario that you laid out, I think it's entirely plausible. Look, the doses that they have ordered that have been delayed, maybe they do arrive in March, and then it's all over the news again, right? Oh, we're ramping up, and this, they hear CTV Winnipeg Supper Hour News. Here's a woman in Winnipeg getting a vaccine, and you can see how this plays itself out all across the country. Boom, there's the budget. Let's have the election. Liberal majority government. Sure, I can totally see that happening.
He just seems too
absolutely
cocky and confident about it.
You can't shake him off that March time frame, and. It was kind of revealing, Dave. Thank you for your call. I mean, it was kind of revealing. Why is he able to stick to this March time frame? Because it was their plan all along to start taking delivery of most of this vaccine in April, because they never thought it would ever be approved by December. And then it was approved in December, and they were totally caught off guard and totally caught scrambling. They had never planned to begin mass vaccinations in this country until April. Anyway, 10:15, Rob Snow Show, Talkback Hour, 750-1310 is the call-in line on City News.
It was devastating, and it's devastating to all small business, but not knowing where it was going to go. But then the renovation market, as people stayed home, took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or, your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it, but they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major, major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big, big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past, being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day, and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022. For in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still gonna see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood pellet barbecues. To go online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on Our Work. It's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real. There's testimonials there about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
On Friday, Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, you may know him as the star of the Rideau Cottage show, said this about our vaccination program. Just maybe the last 3 or 4 words, I think, all we really need to hear from Mr. Trudeau.
That's why I want to reassure Canadians that we are on track.
We're on track. We're on track. The vaccine program is all on track. Nothing to worry about here. 750-1310. Is that your impression of Canada's vaccination program at this stage of the game? 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. The Rob Snow Show at ottawa.citynews.ca. I am open to being cheered up. It's a Monday. Tom Brady wins again. Irene, good morning, Irene.
Okay. I keep thinking the opposite of on track is a train wreck.
Yeah. Derailed, right?
Derailed,
off the track. It's gone off the rails. Yeah.
Because whenever I've noticed whenever they're asked a direct question, they don't answer. All of them are spinning everything. And I kind of wonder, when Trudeau is not in the House of Commons, he's at home, taking the questions. Is there teleprompts there for him to read off? You know, like.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Like it kind of makes you wonder, right? Because he's always like, I'm doing it right now. But there's one other question I have to ask you.
Okay.
There's commercials on TV now attacking Aaron O'Toole, and it's from a group called Protecting Canadians.
Protecting Canadians.
Who in the heck is this group? Who's behind it? Is it the union?
Protecting Canadians. I don't know. I haven't seen these ads.
Well, the first little balloon was dropped on the CBC over a week ago.
Okay.
And then yesterday, I don't know if it was on Global or on CTV, and they're talking about Aaron O'Toole.
Well, who would have money to spend right now on ads like that other than unions, right?
Well, but they're calling themselves Protecting Canadians. They got the wrong picture.
Well, maybe it's like maybe it's like the second, third iteration of the Working Families Coalition or something like that, right?
Yeah, but
Protecting Canadians. Okay, I'll look into it. I'll do some digging and see what I can find out for you.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Irene. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anytime.
Bye-bye.
Anytime. Yep. Tom, thank you for calling. Tom, you're on City News.
I just got off an airplane.
You just got off an airplane?
I did.
From where?
I from Toronto, coming to Ottawa, the 8 o'clock flight.
Okay.
And I sat beside a very nice lady who was coming back from Montego Bay, Jamaica. She stayed the night overnight in the airport. And she said to me that she came from a flight with a whole bunch of people from Britain because the only way they could get back to the United States was to the United Kingdom was to come through Ottawa and then head back, or Toronto, and head back over the pond. And I was quite shocked. And I looked around, and there were several really well-tanned people that obviously were on the same flight she was from Jamaica.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, why were these people not quarantined for 2 weeks, like the Prime Minister said?
Right.
Why? What does it do for me to protect me when these people are quarantined when they come in the country? Why do they have to go to their final destination? I mean, I thought I needed some protection there, and I probably do.
Okay. So the woman that you were sitting next to, nice lady coming back from Jamaica.
Yeah, very nice person.
On her way to the UK, you said?
No, she was on her way to Ottawa.
Oh, she's on her way to Ottawa.
Yeah, and several other people were on their way to Ottawa, too.
Right.
But the plane she got off of last night from Jamaica.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Was half filled with UK.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, just so I understand. Okay. Yeah.
So that really bothered me.
Does she have to go into the so-called quarantine hotel now for the next 3 days?
Will, yes.
Yes. Okay.
I hope so. But that's what I'm expecting.
Right.
That's what the Prime Minister told me.
Yes.
But I didn't get that the people were allowed to fly all around Canada and bring the infection all through the airplanes through Canada before they went into some form of a quarantine. I mean, what the hell? You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it, right?
Like, why not go into quarantine in Toronto, for example?
Well, if that's where you land.
If that's where you land, right?
You were told not to leave.
Right.
So all these people come.
So we're going to quarantine. We'll quarantine her here in Ottawa, but only after she's been, who knows where in the Pearson Airport, for example, or if you were in Pearson or the downtown airport, I'm not sure, but
no, Pearson downtown shut down.
Oh, it is shut down. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So she's sleeping there overnight. There was a number of people that had come back from holidays on the flight to Ottawa today, and none of them had quarantined. None.
Wow. Okay.
So everybody like me were there. Of course, we have masks on. I washed my hands as soon as I got off the plane. Yeah. But I'm not really protected by that, am I?
Well, I hope you are, but I guess we'll find out. Be careful. Be careful out there, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for that information. Isn't that wild? It's crazy. It's wild. It's crazy. It's on track. Richard, Orleans. Richard.
Yeah, I was just wondering about Trudeau's mention of being on track.
We're on track with the vaccine program, Richard. Don't be so noisy. There's a lot of noise out there, and don't be noisy.
Yeah, but let's compare his target to other countries' targets and see if his plan was good or not. I mean, that's the key, because in his mind, his target is September. Well, September was a bad plan to begin with. And basically, that plan came out because he got into games so late in August that there wasn't any available. And here he is trying to convince Canadians that it was a good plan, and that's the target. So he feels if we meet the target in September, that's good. Well, it's not. How many people are going to die because we didn't get the vaccine by the end of May or June, like other countries are going to do it?
Yep.
I mean, that's what we have to have in the back of our mind. With him spinning about being on track, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And unless the media starts comparing our plan to other countries' plans and visibly show this to Canadians, he may get away with it if by chance he meets the September target, which to me just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, the longer this goes on, the more out of reach that September target, I think, is becoming. I mean, the numbers just aren't, the math just doesn't add up.
Well, sure.
Right.
And the fact that he got 1.9 million doses from the developing countries, it just shows, hey, I don't have enough, so I got to go get it from somewhere else. And then it sounds as if that vaccine is not good for the new strain.
Well, at least one, the South African variant, right?
So, but the way we open up our country to international travel, like shouldn't we be closing our borders to anybody from South Africa or to England? There's no reason for people to be traveling back and forth right now. And because it's so dangerous, and we don't know if that vaccine we're taking is going to adhere to it. So anyway, that's my opinion. I just think that.
So, it sounds like everything's on track then, Richard.
Yeah, like on track for a train wreck, yeah?
Okay,
Maybe.
thank you. Yeah, on track. We're on track.
We are on track.
We're on track. Classic. This is City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, February the 8th. Good morning. I'm Chris Curries. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's minus 12, feels like minus 18. Here's what's making news this hour. The latest update on COVID-19 is in, and typical of Mondays, the numbers are a bit down. 1,258 positive cases province-wide, 50 in Ottawa, 4 in Eastern Ontario, 1 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 0 in Renfrew. This all according to provincial reporting. There were 33 deaths as well. Ottawa Public Health will update their numbers a bit later today. Now, the Premier expected to reveal plans on reopening the economy gradually today. A stay-at-home order likely to stay in effect, but regions will gradually transition back to the province's color-coded system of restrictions. Ottawa likely to be in the second phase of reopening. Sources say next week, right after Family Day, is the target. The announcement is scheduled for 1 o'clock. A man wanted in a fraud investigation has turned himself into Ottawa police. Marc-Andre Levesque was wanted on theft and fraud charges related to his time as a store manager at an East End business. Police say the investigation is ongoing. Well, the federal government looking to help Ottawa build back better following the pandemic through an influx of money into the new Ottawa Public Library. Library and Archives Canada joint facility. $34.5 million being provided, so the facility, which was announced last January, will be a net zero carbon building. It's expected to open in 2024. I'm Chris Curries. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Just looking through this, what is this group called again? Protecting Canadians? Yeah, it's the Working Families Coalition. It's basically the latest left-wing, third-party, union-funded left-wing loonies with all the same old tired left-wing propaganda that we used to see from groups like the Working Families Coalition, like how a conservative campaign promise led to a $36 billion cut to health care. See, the conservatives never cut health care funding. It's just it's a lie. They're liars. So it's union-financed, third-party lying is what it is, and it's basically the typical same old left-wing people who are at it, the union people, the New Democrats. So if you're wondering who's behind that group, Protecting Canadians, apparently the advertising on the Leaf games, that's probably why I didn't see them. I don't watch the Leaf games. So that's who's behind it. It's just the latest iteration of the Working Families Coalition. Remember, the Working Families Coalition spent more than the political parties during one of the Ontario elections. So in case you're curious, that's what's going on there. Anne in Nepean, thank you for calling. You're on City News. Morning, Anne.
I need to vent a little bit.
Go ahead and vent.
Our son is immunosuppressed, so I haven't seen my brother-in-law in Toronto in over a year. I haven't seen my brother-in-law here in 6 weeks. On top of that, we have people in Montreal whom we're very, very close to. We visit all the time. They're like brothers to us. And his mother is dying, whom we visit with all the time. And we can't be there to support them. We can't be there to see her either. Now, we are now playing the long game, as we've heard all the time from medical people and the Trudeau government. He is the worst waste of skin I have ever seen. I am so enraged and dispirited. At this point, I am ready to take...
So you don't think things are on track? He says things are on track.
He doesn't even know what a track looks like.
But he said on Friday things are on track.
That's why I want to reassure Canadians that we are on track.
About as useless as a trapdoor in a canoe. I mean, this guy is the worst. And every death that is occurring in the past 3 to 4 weeks is on him and the Liberal Party and on the NDP for backing him. This is killing us. This is killing people. This is killing businesses. It's killing families. And I'm not talking about the disease. We are losing ourselves. We are losing ourselves and our humanity. And right now, people should be out in the street. I am telling you, the Liberals have got to go, or it's going to get bad.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. You feel better now?
A little bit, thank you.
Okay, good. Just remember, things are on track. Everything's on track.
What track?
The Prime Minister says everything's on track. Everything's on
you
track.
believe him?
Okay. I'll tell you what I believe. I believe the data, Ann. And I looked at the data this morning from our worldindata.org. I try to do that every Monday morning because it's just the numbers. It's just the data showing how all the countries in the world are doing at getting shots into the arms of their citizens. And when it comes to Canada, I don't know. Are we on track?
A lot of noise going on right now.
You know, Tristan Hopper noted in his column in the National Post a few days ago, this performance on vaccines comes in spite of spending the most per capita in the world, right? On procuring vaccines. Nobody has spent more than us. And yet you look at the numbers. Doses administered per 100 in the population, the Canadian number is 2.8 as of this morning. It's never been 3. It's 2.8. Like, you think we could, by now, we could hit, say, 3 out of 100. Israel, 62.9.
We are on track.
The UK, 17.6. The United States is 11.7. Spain is 4.3. Italy's 4.2. Germany's 3.7. Belgium 3.6. France 3.1. Those are what I would call our peer countries, right? Similar standard of living, modern, developed economies, some form of socialized medicine. We're trailing all of them. And we're the only one that's tapped into the COVAX program as well. So that's just one metric. And then there's the 7-day rolling average. We're stuck at 0.08, whereas the United Arab Emirates is now leading the world on that score at 1.57 because they're running out of people to vaccinate in Israel. They vaccinated just about everybody. Israel 1.14, UK 0.6, United States 0.4, we're 0.08. Some of the countries with a higher score: Malta, Serbia, Switzerland, Poland, Spain, Italy, Germany, Romania, France, Turkey, Brazil, and then just the big number, doses administered, total. United States now 39 million, more than the entire population of Canada. In the UK, 12 million, 5.4 million in Israel. Canada, 1.04 million. Now, that number hasn't been updated since the 5th of February, so it might be a little higher than that right now. Hardly a world-beating number. Behind such countries as Poland, Spain, France, Italy, Turkey, Germany, Brazil, the UAE, Israel, and India. Oh, and behind the following U.S. states: California, Texas, Florida, New York State, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia. Georgia. Population a little more than 10 million. It's actually administered more doses of COVID-19 vaccine than we have in the entire country. I hear Savannah is nice this time of year. And on Friday, this guy says what?
That we are on track.
Yeah, we're on track. Tim, good morning. You're on City News.
Hi, Rob. He can say those things because he's not challenged on anything, and he's not held responsible for what he says. He can literally stand in front of all of Canada and say something so ridiculous when the numbers show the truth. But the one question I would love to have someone in the media ask him is, has his mother been vaccinated? Has she received the vaccination?
And why do you want to know that? Why do you want to know that?
Because I'm 99% sure I know the answer.
Oh, okay.
And I think if the rest of the country knew the answer, they might wake up. they might wake up.
What do you think the answer is?
Well, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Just like the Wee scandal, they look after themselves. There's a pattern here.
Okay.
My second point is, in about when this is over, and you can count all the deaths and the destruction of businesses, and as you just stated, we've spent the most per capita.
Yeah. Well, that's what Tristan Hopper mentioned that in his column in the Post on the weekend. Yeah.
So what that really means is, if we've spent the most and received the least, we're right back to the famous word that ravages Canada year in, year out, corruption. It can't be any other way.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, sir. Thank you. How old is Margaret Trudeau?
She's 72.
72. Okay. All right. The Ontario NDP is calling for March break to go ahead. Students, parents, teachers, and educational workers are exhausted, burnt out, and they desperately need a break, says leader Andrea Horvath. By the way, the leader of Ontario's Liberal Party is on our program this morning, Stephen Del Duca, and the leader of the federal New Democrats is on our program this morning as well, Jagmeet Singh. Folks, on track. The Prime Minister says we're on track. Is this a vaccination program? When you just look at the data, is it a vaccination program that really appears to be on track to you? David, you're on City News. Good morning.
Yes, good morning,
yes,
Rob.
Sir.
Watch your blood pressure, will you?
No, I'm fine. Yeah. I'm slightly over-caffeinated, I will say.
Yeah, okay, that explains that. Okay, first of all, I agree with the first caller, David.
Yeah.
And with Anne, totally.
Yeah.
You mentioned this interesting number that our rolling weekly average is 0.08.
0.08.
Might I remind you that that's the blood alcohol level that was used.
You don't want to be over that number.
No. We can't get past over 0.08, can we?
No.
Thing about Trudeau is he can stand there and he says sometimes, like, win this for the long haul, things are going to get tough before they get better. But when it comes time to pull the trigger and close a business down or install a curfew or do all the other things that the Ford and Legault and Kenny and Horgan and all the rest of the premiers have to do, he doesn't have to stand in front and take the flak for any of that because he's not delivering those news, and so it doesn't fall back to him.
Well, in fact, he a lot of times he's only there to offer the good news. Right?
Yeah,
I'm here to announce a new pandemic relief program. I'm here to announce this many doses will be delivered on this day, or this vaccine has been approved and we've secured this many doses. But he's never there when it's time to announce that.
I've got a closing comment, Rob.
Okay, but just let me finish here.
Okay, sure.
That though he's not around. You notice what he's been doing lately is he's leaving the bad news. That's delivered by somebody else. Lately, it's been Major General Fortin, who has been the one who has had to announce, for example, that the Pfizer shipments were canceled, and then that the Moderna shipments were canceled. It's never Mr. Trudeau delivering the bad news. It's a sneaky old trick in politics. You only want to be around when there's good news to announce.
Yeah, and he wants to get reelected. Now, my parting shot, and I like having my parting shots.
Go ahead.
Trudeau's says they were on track. I think what he means is that we're being railroaded.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you. We'll be right back for the final quarter. Some lines there available for you. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups, and we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic. Probably more. I'd have to do the math, but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Lots of phone lines available there. 750-1310. Talkback Hour. City News, Monday. Super Bowl Monday. David you have a deep fryer. David came in this morning and he said, you ate a lot of junk food yesterday.
I feel
homemade
horrible.
Junk food, greasy junk
terrible.
food.
Yeah.
So when you say you actually have a deep fryer,
yeah,
it's not one of those fancy new air fryers. I see the air fryers.
It's not an air fryer.
It's actually like a traditional deep fryer. What kind of oil do you use? Like,
depends what you want to make. Canola oil, strictly speaking, is your catch-all.
Do you actually melt the Crisco kind of thing down?
No, I buy my oil by the gallon.
Oh, you do? Really?
I don't make the oil, but generally canola oil, vegetable oil will do the trick just fine. Yeah, right. It takes about 3 liters of oil to fill it up.
And what did you? So you were deep frying like crazy yesterday.
I was
kind of a finger food smorgasbord.
I made a platter.
A platter.
I always loved the fried platter when you go to the bar, but the
deep fried platter, fried finger food platter.
I had bacon wrapped scallops, deep fried jalapeno poppers, deep fried bocconcini cheese balls, pizza sticks, and wings that I had marinated for about 24 hours, 3 or 4 different kinds of dips.
Oh. That sounds so good.
It took like 4.5 hours to put it all together, but I had the time. It wasn't a very interesting.
What else do you have to do, right? No, lockdowns and curfews and stay-at-home orders.
We live in a small apartment in a downtown under lockdown, so I spent 4 hours frying food and crammed it all in.
Man, that sounds delicious. Oh, I should have been over to your place.
I feel terrible today, truly.
Okay. Justin Trudeau says our vaccination program's on track. Well, I don't know. Do some quick math. You can do it at home, okay? Make it an exercise with your kids. Let's even be charitable to the government, and let's just work from the assumption that this is the government and it's never going to meet its September deadline. Let's give it until the end of the year. Let's give it until the end of December, right? To vaccinate it with at least one dose, every Canadian over the age of 15, at least one dose of vaccine. That's 32 million people in the country are over the age of 15. We've already given one dose to 1 million people, so 31 million to go. And we have 10.75 months to do that. 325 days. That means we have to be vaccinating, just to give everybody one dose, 95,000 people a day. Every day. For the next 325 days. To hit that target. A more charitable target than Mr. Trudeau's target. The end of December. That's 667,000 Canadians a week. It's 2.6 million Canadians every month. Every hour of every day for the next 10 months and 22 days. The first doses were given out in this country on December 14th. That was 56 days ago. We've done 1,040,000 doses, or about 18,500 a day. It needs to be 95,000. Not 18,500. Not going to do it. It's been about 130,000 a week. It needs to be 667,000 a week. It needs to be 2.6 million a month. It's been barely 500,000 a month. It's not on track. That's to get everyone over the age of 15 only one dose of vaccine, and most of these are 2-dose vaccines. And now we have all kinds of worries about variants and how effective at least one of the 2-dose vaccines is against the variant, right? AstraZeneca and the South African variant. Already in Toronto. On track, yeah. On track. Everything's on track.
We are on track.
Well, if you say so. Robert in Carleton, please.
Hi. You're going to get tired of hearing my voice.
That's okay, Robert. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Do you think this is on track, sir? He says it's on track.
Only if we're getting 1 million doses every day or every second day. Like, not what he's talking about there. Like, come on, 6 million, what, by the end of March, or is it April?
March, by the end of March, he says, yeah.
Then they better, never mind bringing those people back from Jamaica, maybe you should be loading up the plane with vaccines.
Okay.
And also, too, I wonder if JT has had his vaccination yet? And if he has?
No, I don't think he's been vaccinated yet. He said he would only get vaccinated when they made the call for healthy 49-year-olds to get vaccinated.
Wow.
That's what he said.
Well, then maybe he should be going out and walking around in the public so that he has a chance of catching something.
Well, no. He should be cooped up like the rest of us, right?
No, let him go out and contract it. His wife did that last year. And watch how quickly he's going to want to get that vaccine.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, Robert. I mean, come on. Let's not wish ill health on anybody here, Robert, right?
Well, he's wishing it on everybody else.
Yeah, I don't think there's any ill intent here. I just think it's, for the most part, I think it's incompetence, poor planning, poor decision making.
Yeah, well, why is he?
Right, it's for example, Robert. Thank you for your call. It's like wasting 3 months on trying to do a deal with a company that's headquartered in China. Why would we do that? Renfrew, Ray. Morning, Ray.
Good morning, Rob.
As
far as the track, we're on the same track.
Are we on track? Yeah.
Basically, incompetence spelled with capital letters.
Mm-hmm.
And what surprises me is, with all the experience and intelligence and education in this country, everybody's sitting back and letting them lie to us every day. Where's the Canadian Medical Association? Where were they when he was sending all our PPE away? not a boo from one of them. You would have thought that with all the doctors and whatnot, all the healthcare professionals, that are going to need this stuff, nobody said boo. Not the unions, not the medical, not the scientists, nobody.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, that's to me that's shocking. The only critical thinking from way back, and you can go and take a look because I've been following Dr. Adaran. He's the only guy from day one, besides Dr. Chris Stevenson and and this citizen blogger. Frank Vaughn out of Peterborough. They're the only ones who were calling this out. And if you go back and check, they were right on the entire way.
Okay. Calling what out? Calling out that, Cam didn't even use her own response papers. She wrote them in 206 and 215. Or 2015. She wrote two of them. Oh, you mean the pandemic emergency response?
Exactly. If we would have used those, we would have been shut down.
Well, maybe so, but we would still have needed to secure PPE. We would have had to have an emergency stockpile. We didn't have any of that, right?
I know, but do you think for 1 minute that if Chalk River started melting down that we'd have the same kind of response? Not a chance.
Oh, well, I don't know.
That anybody with any experience at all, with any kind of nuclear experience would be called in. Where are all the former, health ministers or health people or whatever that with experience in this stuff? Where were they? Why weren't they called in?
All right.
To help with this, with their experience?
Okay, Ray. Thank you, Ray. Thank you. Yeah. No, I don't have time to take one more. Oh, sorry. Called too late there today, Kathy. You only called 2 minutes ago. Would have loved to have heard from you earlier in the hour, but feel free to call tomorrow during the talkback hour. So coming up right after the 11 o'clock news, we're going to have more on vaccines. Geoffrey Johnston from the Kingston Whig-Standard, he writes a lot about international aid and international affairs. So he knows a lot about this COVAX program, what it was intended to do, and I'm going to ask him about his opinion on Canada securing 1.9 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from this program that a lot of us thought was designed to help the poorest countries in the world. That's coming right up after the news on City News.
for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, February the 8th. Good morning. I'm Chris Curries. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, it's minus 12. In Ottawa, feels like minus 19. And Smiths Falls, minus 16. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. If you're wondering when you can do more in-person shopping or get your hair done, you can expect some answers today with the province set to announce a reopening plan. Our Irene Precklett joins us with that and the latest COVID-19 case numbers.
1,265 new cases of COVID-19 reported today. That brings our 7-day average down to 1,327, something we haven't seen since last fall. Now, this is all based on just over 28,300 tests. Keeping in mind, testing numbers for Sunday are usually lower. The lower case numbers come with the state of emergency set to expire tomorrow. Premier Ford is not expected to renew it. What we are expecting this afternoon is more information on how the province plans to move forward with reopening. It's expected to be gradual with a move back to that color-coded system. That announcement set for 1 this afternoon. I'm Irene Precklett.
50 of the new cases are in Ottawa, 4 in Eastern Ontario, 1 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 0 in Renfrew. Ottawa Public Health will provide an updated tally around noon today. Now, we're also expecting an update on March break sometime this week from the Education Minister. Namely, will March break for students be cancelled? Ontario NDP leader Andrea Horvath weighs in.
What we need to do is make sure we're not only thinking about, the learning part, but also the mental health part, the fact that folks need a break. So it's mental health, it's emotional health, and that's why we're saying to Doug Ford, we really do need to go ahead with our March break here in Ontario.
She says it's an important opportunity for people to breathe and recharge. She'd like to have clarity on this, she says, sooner than later. An Algonquin Grand Chief is calling for an upcoming decision at City Council to be postponed. Potential developed lands on the Gold Belt have come under fire, the city calling it a reconciliation with Indigenous people, but First Nations groups are saying they weren't consulted. The Grand Chief of the Algonquin Anishinabeg Nation Tribal Council tells City News they sent a letter to the mayor last week outlining their concerns, and since then, crickets.
Mayor Watson needs to really consider postponing this decision on Wednesday. We were trying to meet with him this week, and so far I haven't heard or received any response to the letter I sent to him last week.
Verna Polson says it's clear the council decision should be postponed. This would allow for proper consultation with the necessary groups and for the city to have a proper understanding of why they are opposing the project. The town of Perth updating its official plan this year. The 25-year plan, updated every 5 years. The town will be hosting monthly public meetings in 2021 looking for public input. There will be discussions on economic development, public health and safety, local food, transportation, and community services. Public meetings will be held as part of the regularly scheduled Planning Advisory Committee meetings, and workshops will be held via Zoom. The first meeting will be the 22nd of February. City News time 11:03 with a look at the forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
For Ottawa, the Valley and Smiths Falls today, chance of some flurries. You need the extra layers. Sun and cloud too. The high just -6. Flurries overnight -13. And for tomorrow, some flurries in the morning. Then mainly cloudy -5. Sunshine Wednesday -7. Sun and cloud for Thursday -8. And Friday cloudy, even colder. Snow possible. High just -13. For today, the high -6.
I'm Chris Curries. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Here with my good friend Geoffrey Johnston from the Kingston Whig-Standard. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, it's nice to hear from you. What is COVAX? Explain it to us.
Okay, so COVAX is part of an international effort to ensure that low and middle income countries have access to COVID-19 vaccines. This is part of a larger international effort called the ACT Accelerator. And so basically the World Health Organization brought together international partners such as Gavi, the International Alliance for Vaccines, and also the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. And so the whole goal of all of this larger ACT accelerator, which is access to COVID technologies, is not just vaccines, but also therapeutics and testing. And COVAX is one of the pillars of this overall mechanism. And so I'm actually working on a big feature article, which will be coming out this coming Friday at the Kingston Whig-Standard, because there is controversy, as you've been covering, about COVAX. Canada has been a strong supporter of the ACT Accelerator and the COVAX initiative from the very beginning. So last year, Canada pledged $440 million for this ACT Accelerator, and a lot of this money is going to go to vaccines, and it will purchase vaccines for countries that otherwise would not be able to afford bilateral agreements between governments and the pharmaceutical makers. Now, the reason that COVAX is necessary, and this is what the humanitarian organizations, non-governmental organizations will tell you, the pharmaceutical system globally is broken. It does not produce vaccines and other medicines for the developing world that could be purchased by the developing world because they just can't afford it. It's really pretty much a dog-eat-dog system. And so when the COVAX initiative was announced, a lot of NGOs were actually very pleased. So, for example, Médecins Sans Frontières was happy that this initiative existed, and they also said it was fine that developed countries, richer countries like Canada, would also purchase vaccines from COVAX because this would give the wealthier countries, and this is their words, skin in the game. So Canada from the very outset said that we would help the developing world buy these vaccines, but we would also reserve some of these doses for ourselves. The problem comes that the wealthier nations have also gone out and made all these bilateral deals, and they're buying up all the supply. And so overall, the pharmaceutical industry is actually only producing a fraction of the vaccines to the developing world. And so what will happen is, and this is the criticism of Canada taking doses from COVAX, that much of the developing world will not be vaccinated this year and probably next year. And what will happen as a result of that is the virus will continue to spread, replicate, and mutate. And these mutations will inevitably come to Canada and other wealthy countries, and we are going to find ourselves in a never-ending cycle of having to come up with new variations of these vaccines. And the problem is we'll see healthcare systems in the developing world collapse, and there'll be greater pressure on ours. And so the debate, long and the short of it, is, should Canada be taking doses from COVAX?
And what do you think? And what do you think about that?
Well, you know what? It's a very complex issue. So a big part of the problem is globally.
We're the only G7 country that's decided to do it, Geoffrey.
Now there are several other developed countries that are taking it. So South Korea is taking from COVAX. New Zealand is taking from COVAX, and so is Singapore. So what we have in common is we do not have the infrastructure to build or to make these vaccines domestically, and this is part of the larger problem with the global industry. And so last week, the Director General of the World Health Organization called for the vaccine companies to actually build infrastructure in many countries, including developing countries, because we're seeing vaccine nationalism, and you and I have talked about that. So what happens is you have the European Union suddenly saying, well, you know what, we're not getting enough vaccine right now, so we're putting on export controls. The Trump administration basically put export controls in place, saying no vaccines made by either Moderna or Pfizer in the United States could be exported until you've filled all our orders. And the Biden administration...
That's why our vaccine is coming from Belgium.
That's right. And the same thing is, we all think Joe Biden's going to be our best friend. And although Biden is better than Trump, he is keeping that order in place. And so we don't have the vaccine capacity. The Americans aren't sharing theirs. And now the Europeans are putting the brakes on it. So it's not going to be a popular statement, but I'm going to say, yes, we should be drawing the vaccines from COVAX right now. And the purpose of COVAX in the short run is to vaccinate approximately each country's 3% of their population, which would include their healthcare workers and the most vulnerable people. And that's when Canada gets these 1.9 million doses. The people we should be doing will be the vulnerable people, over 65 and underlying conditions, and healthcare workers. We've got to stop looking at this. We've got to vaccinate everybody now, because when there are enough vaccines available and when they start rolling in April and May, we should be taking some of those doses and sharing them with the developing world so they can vaccinate their healthcare workers and their people who are extremely ill. Because if we don't look at this overall and we allow this virus to continue to spread, we're going to be in big trouble, because we're now seeing news out of South Africa that the new variant there is resistant or mutating to such a point that the vaccine may not work on that preventive.
Well, the AstraZeneca, just the AstraZeneca vaccine so far, and just variant so far.
Yes,
right?
And the COVAX vaccines that we are going to get are AstraZeneca. So this is important, but the thing is, this could happen with the other vaccines too. So there is and the World Health Organization, I've been in contact with them, they keep saying that the vaccines are not going to be a magic bullet, and this cannot be everybody for themselves. And so we're going to be in this for a while, but we've got to start thinking more globally. And the thing is, too, the pharmaceutical industry globally has to be reformed. It's not nearly transparent enough. We don't know overall how many doses they're producing. We don't know what the cost point is for developing nations. It can't be a free-for-all, or we're all going to be in big trouble. And I know that's a lot, and it's a complicated issue, but there are no easy solutions to this, and this is what I
don't know, Geoffrey. It comes to, when I heard that we were tapping into this, basically this is the insurance policy, if you will, of these vaccines, this vaccine facility called COVAX. And a lot of people are like-minded, as you well know. It seems as though we're robbing from the poorest countries of the world by tapping into it. I know that, we put $440 million into this program, and we are assured a certain supply of vaccine from this facility. But at the same time, all the PR and all the buildup about it was all about helping the developed world. It was about equity, right? So for one of the wealthiest countries in the world to be tapping into this facility so early, not even 2 months into the vaccination rollout in this country, it all seems unseemly to me, Geoffrey.
Yeah, I understand why people feel that way, and it is a bad situation, but it does come back to this dysfunctional nature of the pharmaceutical industry, and there's no equity in that industry. And Canada finds itself in the position that it does not have capacity to make these vaccines. And this is a larger problem in the world, and this is why this is one of these things that's going to have to be addressed in the short, the medium term, and the longer term, because we're going to have another pandemic down the road, and the next time it could be, an avian bird flu that could spread very quickly and kill so many people. So we're going to have to get a handle on this sooner rather than later. But it is frustrating. But as I say, there are no easy solutions. And the thing is, when our vaccines do come rolling in, we should start to share them sooner rather than later with the developing world. And I know that's going to upset some people, but in the end, nobody's going to win this race unless we all win it. And the thing is, if the developing world waits until 2023 to be vaccinated, we're all going to see these mutant strains that are going to come back to bite us. The global economy will not open. Global supply chains will not work, and our economies will continue to be dysfunctional. So we've got to really start thinking about this as one race, the human race.
Okay. Thank you, Geoffrey. Always good.
Thank you, sir.
From the Kingston Whig-Standard, where he writes about international affairs, that's Geoffrey Johnston. Some of the biggest business stories of the week. Just ahead, David Sali will join us. From the Ottawa Business Journal, this is City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
Opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
As we get ready to talk about what's going on in local business news, I should say one of the big stories of the day is happening on the financial markets right now, and it involves two of the hottest asset classes in high finance right now. First of all, you have the high-flying tech stocks, namely Tesla, and you have Bitcoin. Bitcoin right now is up almost $6,000 US right now. It's up about 15% today. It's hit an all-time high. Bitcoin is above $44,000 US, $44,000 US dollars. And this is because Tesla, owned by Elon Musk, Tesla came out today and said, by the way, the company, Tesla, has purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. And in addition to that, we are working on a way to make it possible that you will someday, soon, be able to buy a Tesla vehicle with Bitcoin. So it will, I guess, conceivably move more into the mainstream as an actual currency instead of a cryptocurrency. So it's pretty wild and crazy days. David Sali, good morning from the Ottawa Business Journal. Great to hear from you again.
Good morning. Well, you too, Rob. So when you buy your Tesla, then are you going to buy it in Bitcoin?
I'll just have to. Yeah, I'll dip into my Bitcoin crypto reserve, and
Well, sure, exactly.
Yeah. You know, it's actually Ottawa. This is a nice segue because if you go out to the technology park in Canada, you'll find dozens and dozens of companies in the technology park in Canada are involved in one way or another in emerging automotive technologies having to do with autonomous vehicles. One of the best known ones being BlackBerry QNX. And there's been some big recent news on that. What is that news, David?
Yeah, Rob, well, exactly. As you say, BlackBerry QNX is one of the really cutting edge software companies in Canada that's dealing in the very fast emerging field of autonomous vehicles. As we all know, they are self-driving cars are obviously deep in the planning stages right now, and we have a test facility here in Ottawa that's basically been built, multi-million-dollar facility just to test all the different technologies that are going to surround autonomous vehicles in all types of weather. And BlackBerry QNX is one of the leaders in that field. And they have a big R&D facility out in Canada that employs about 400 people. And last week, Ford kind of quietly announced on a blog that it was going to be dropping. It right now, it uses BlackBerry QNX technology to kind of power its infotainment platform in many of its vehicles. So, you know, when you want to turn up the music volume up or down, various voice-activated technologies, that kind of stuff, that uses BlackBerry QNX software. Ford announced last week that it is switching to an Android-based platform to do that, made by Google. Okay. That'll make it easier for people with Android smartphones to use it, and just it kind of follows the trend. A lot of auto manufacturers in recent years have switched over, have moved to Android, including Volvo, GM, Renault. They've all switched to Google to power their infotainment system. So that was a big chunk of BlackBerry QNX's business. Ford is one of its main customers. So there was a bit of a ripple, you know, a bit of understandably, somewhat of, you know, a bit of eyebrows being raised in the market. What's this going to mean? But I talked to a couple of analysts last week who said that they still feel, you know, that while this is a bit of a blow to BlackBerry QNX, losing Ford's infotainment business, BlackBerry QNX also makes a bunch of other software for cars. Infotainment is just one part of that. Okay. They, for instance, assisted driving. When you when the car parks itself, so to speak, right. BlackBerry, its operating system powers all that stuff because BlackBerry's QNX's system is known for its security. It's very resistant to any type of say cyber attacks or any other security risks. So it's still a main plank of many automakers' operating systems and their platforms. So a lot of analysts I talked to said really losing the infotainment side of things isn't as big a deal as you might think it is because BlackBerry's moving more and more into developing these secure connected platforms that control all kinds of other aspects of cars on the road today, and they're only going to become a bigger part of cars in the future as we move more and more towards more autonomous systems in cars. So, so it's still an interesting development, but most analysts don't think it's going to have negative consequences on BlackBerry in the long run.
So I started our segment by talking about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. That is not Canadian banknotes business. Canadian banknotes business is actually just what it sounds like. banknotes. I've always found this company to be fascinating, this Ottawa company on Richmond Road. It has been in business for a long time, I think more than a century now. And it makes currency, not just for Canada, but for clients all over the world. It makes other secure documents as well. And it's really branching out into all sorts of other businesses, including things like even splits, right? For sports teams, for professional sports teams. And it's made a move into digital gaming. Tell us about that, David.
Well, Rob, as you say, don't let the name fool you.
Right.
Canadian banknote, despite its name, does a lot more than just printing money for, as you say, Canada, New Zealand, 30 countries around the world. That's still probably most of its business. But, yeah, it's really branched out in the last couple of decades, Rob. It first got into making lottery equipment, like lottery terminals, more than 20 years ago. And now it actually runs the government lottery system for a bunch of countries in the Caribbean and and Latin America. And kind of as an extension of that, it got into doing digital 50/50 software. So
digital 50/50.
The senators,
okay.
so you can watch. You may have even taken part in this, Rob. You can, when you're watching the census season, they run online 50/50 draws, even though you can't be there at Scotiabank Place. Well, it's Canadian banknote software that actually runs those draws. They also work with the Blue Jays, Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, and now they're going to be working with a lot more organizations across North America, because last week they reached a deal to acquire a Toronto-based company called Bump Worldwide. And Bump, it does this stuff for more than 100 customers all over North America, including the Chicago Cubs, the Chicago Blackhawks, the San Francisco 49ers, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. So this is really a growing space. I mean, this is becoming a new way for sports teams and other organizations that run charitable, charitable groups to make money online. And so Canadian banknote really feels like this is an area that they can really that's really ripe for expansion. And so now with this deal, they've suddenly they've grown all across North America with this, and they really think that this is going to just keep becoming a bigger part of their overall business.
Excellent. Well, we'll have to wrap it up there. We can talk about these raging real estate prices next week, because that's a story that is not going anywhere. And mercifully, I can always just, like you, David, we'll just dip into our Bitcoins if we need to buy a new house.
Absolutely, Rob. You've got that supply of Bitcoin. Just make sure you hold on to it.
Thank you. Always good to hear from you. David Sali from the Ottawa Business Journal. We're back right after the news. Jagmeet Singh is going to be our guest, the leader of Canada's New Democrats. This is The Rob Snow Show on City News.
Local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Monday, February 8th. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buchan. Right now in Ottawa, we've got some sunshine, a few clouds, -11, wind chill -14. Smiths Falls, mainly sunny and -9 with a wind chill of -13. Here's what's making news right now. Premier Doug Ford is expected to announce his plan to gradually reopen the province today. Reports suggest Ford's going to let the state of emergency expire on schedule tomorrow. But a stay-at-home order will remain in effect as regions gradually transition back to the province's color-coded system of restrictions. 4 regions with the fewest cases of COVID-19 are expected to go back to at least the restrictive green phase of reopening on Wednesday. Other regions will transition back to the color-coded system in the coming weeks. Public Health Ontario reporting 50 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa out of 1,265 new cases across the province. The numbers out of over 28,000 tests. That's the lowest testing figure we've seen this year and the lowest since late November. 33 more people in Ontario have died due to COVID-19. Elsewhere locally, 4 new cases in Eastern Ontario, 1 for Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and no new cases for Renfrew County. The local health units update their numbers in the afternoon. Quebec is reporting 853 new cases of COVID-19, 17 more deaths attributed to novel coronavirus, 2 in the past 24 hours. Health officials said today hospitalizations were up, as were the number of patients in intensive care. There are 11 new cases in the Outaouais. I'm Sarah Buchan. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And I'm joined this morning, and it's always a pleasure to have him on the Rob Snow Show, the leader of Canada's New Democrats, Jagmeet Singh. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone listening to the Rob Snow Show.
I hope you're well. You're well, and your family's well. Good?
Yes, sir.
Good. That's good. You are calling for an end to for-profit delivery of long-term care in Canada. Why?
That's absolutely correct. I'm calling for it because one of the most heartbreaking parts of this pandemic has been the fact that it is seniors, particularly seniors in long-term care, that have borne the brunt of the pandemic. They've been the hardest hit. They've lost their lives. And what we've learned very clearly with overwhelming evidence is that for-profit long-term care has been worse for seniors. And not just a little worse, I'm talking extremely horrible conditions, high rates of infections, and high rates of death. Given the clear evidence that for-profit has meant horrible conditions for seniors and more loss of life, we are saying there is no place for profit in our healthcare system, but certainly not in the care for seniors, given all the evidence.
Okay. What kind of time frame are you thinking about here?
So
this is not something that can happen overnight, obviously.
Fair point. We're proposing 2 things. One, immediately, and one, a goal to end this so that it never happens again. The immediate goal is Revera, which is the second largest provider of long-term care homes and services in this country, is right now completely owned by a federal agency. So it is absolutely within the federal government's power to make that public. It is owned by a federal agency. It can be made public, and that would immediately mean the second largest provider would become public. That'll require working with provinces, but the actual make public portion would happen right away with the powers that the federal government has. The longer term goal is by 2030, you want to see all homes in Canada made public or not for profit. It can be done. There will be a series of steps, including moratoriums on new beds, including funding long-term care homes with the same principles of the Canada Health Act. At the end of the day, not a cent of public money, of our hard-earned money as people, as Canadians, should go towards a for-profit home that spends money on enriching their shareholders. That just should not happen. No one wants to see their money go to making someone richer. It should go towards caring for seniors.
I guess my fear would be, here's what I'm afraid of, is prior to the pandemic, and I'm sure you know this, Mr. Singh, going back to your days as an Ontario MPP, one of the big issues in long-term care was how long it took to get a bed in long-term care.
That's right.
Right, the wait time. 5 years was not unheard of. And parents would get a call, hey, we have a room available for your mom and dad now, or your mom or your dad now. You have 48 hours to make up your mind, right? This would not be unusual. I'm wondering if you eliminate, say, the private sector and it goes totally into the public realm, how is the government ever going to keep up with what is going to be only growing demand over the next few decades for long-term care services?
Well, it certainly needs...
you're talking a massive investment here.
Yeah, we're going to certainly need to invest. But one of the things that we'll see in terms of savings is, right now, for every dollar that we've been spending in long-term care, we don't know if that dollar is actually going towards care.
Right.
Because of the for-profit system, we actually for sure know that it's not all going. We know that a significant portion of that dollar that we spend on long-term care is going towards the profit of a company. And I mean not-for-profits, public and for-profits all receive government funding right now. So the amount of dollar that we spend is not all going to caring our seniors. So there will be some efficiency in making sure every single cent is going towards care. And we know we've got the examples when we have not-for-profit, which are often community-run, and they provide care that's specific to communities, so language and food. There's Asian communities that have not-for-profits that are very successful and provide great quality care, and it's not for profit, so the money goes back into the community. It goes back into the care for residents. So there are models that work. It's going to require some investment, but we'll be confident that every cent we spend will go towards care. That's going to be the big difference.
Okay. Yeah, and other things will need to be addressed, and I'm sure you're aware. If we looked at where some of the most horrific outbreaks have been, we will probably see some other trends. This is what I've learned in speaking with experts and advocates who have followed this terrible story over the last year. We would find older homes, right? Mainly built to old standards in the 60s and the 70s with ward rooms with 4 people living in a room. We would find personal support workers, not enough of them, and too many working part-time, not being paid enough. Certainly something needs to be done there, right? On the pay and the job security of the staffing levels in long-term care. That's a big issue, too.
One of the things that has become so clear, separate from the for-profit, and you're right, that's not the only solution. The next biggest thing we've found is that everywhere where there is better quality of work, meaning good pay or better pay and better hours, that directly relates to better outcomes for seniors, for residents. There's no question about it. In fact, even in homes which are outdated and had multi-residents in one room, if the staffing levels were high enough, they actually had lower rates of infection. So really, the staffing levels are key, and it goes back to profit. The reason why staffing levels are so low in the for-profit is because staff cost money, and they want to cut corners to make a profit. So that's where we've seen really low staffing, where we've seen the part-time hours, not willing to give people good wages or permanent long-term jobs. So clearly, the staffing is undeniable. We're talking nurses, personal support workers, even doctors. Having the healthcare workers, the frontline healthcare workers there at the homes in sufficient hours and quantity is absolutely a big part of it, and having good quality wages and work. This is important work they do. They should be paid appropriately.
Okay. I want to ask you about the vaccination program and what Mr. Trudeau said on Friday. He said it's on track. The vaccination program is on track. Well, a lot of people don't think it's on track. We're going to play a clip here. This was Mr. Trudeau on Friday.
They want to know when they can go back to everything they've done before. They want to know mostly when their grandparents are going to be safe, when the vaccines are going to come. That's why there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of noise going on right now. That's why I want to reassure Canadians that we are on track.
We're on track, Mr. Singh. Do you think the vaccination program is on track?
No, and I'm not happy to say that. I want the vaccine program to succeed. I want to see all Canadians get vaccinated. I want to see everyone in our country have access to the vaccine. But sadly, that is not the case. And we have to be honest about that. And so it doesn't help when when the Prime Minister, when Justin Trudeau says we're on track, when the evidence shows otherwise. We're seeing delays in shipments. We're seeing a lack of clarity around local production. First, the Prime Minister comes out with a great announcement saying that we're going to be able to produce locally by September. His minister says, no, it's going to be end of the year. And then the NRC, where the facility where it's going to be produced, says, no, it's going to be 2022. What we know is until we have local production capacity, we will always be at the whims of international logistics, where other countries will decide that it is more important for them to vaccinate their own population than sending shipments to Canada. That has become a concern, and we've seen it happen again and again. We also have seen delays in other production facilities mean that Canadians are getting less vaccine or delayed vaccine. And delays in vaccine mean more people get sick and more people can lose their life. It is a life or death question.
Yep. So what do you think about the COVAX and taking vaccines out of COVAX?
I think COVAX, that decision to tap into a supply that was meant for developing nations, poorer nations, has been criticized by Doctors Without Borders. It's been criticized by Oxfam. And when these very reputable groups are criticizing Canada's decision, it clearly shows that things aren't going well, that this is not the plan, that this is not a good plan. And really, I want to again highlight, we've been long calling for the ability to make vaccines in our country. The UK had an expert recently provide some insight in Canada. He was on a show in Canada, CTV, and he said UK was not in a position a year ago. We were not in a position to produce this vaccine a year ago. We made a decision that we are going to gear up, and then we now have that capacity. Canada is one of the world's largest economies, and I think we can't forget that. We are a G7 nation. There is no excuse for us not being able to make this vaccine in Canada. We should have been making this a priority from day one. And then if we produce it here, we can be sure that the supply will make it to the people who need it.
Do you think the government is being transparent enough? Do you think contract details should be released?
I think they should be revealed. Premiers have called for this recently, and Canadians want to know. And frankly, other countries have provided those details. The United States has provided details of contracts. Australia has done so. There's no reason why they can't provide the contract, let us know what's going on. And if there's some really, really sensitive information, certain portions could be redacted, but providing that transparency is key. In fact, we learned recently that there was an internal memo from the Liberal government where some of the staff were talking about whether we should be providing Canadians with all the information or not. The fact that they're wondering is, to me, very concerning. Canadians need to know that every effort is being made, that they need to know answers to their questions so that we can have trust in government delivering this vaccine. I want people to believe in us. But to do that, the Liberal government's got to step up and be transparent.
One final quick question. The unemployment rate report came out on Friday. 213,000 jobs lost. A lot of them part-time jobs. I'm going to read you three lines from the unemployment report from Statistics Canada, and I want your reaction. The unemployment rate among Southeast Asian Canadians is 20.1% right now in Canada. Southeast Asian Canadians. The unemployment rate among Black Canadians is 16.4%, and the unemployment rate for Latin American Canadians is 16.6%. Why do you think visible minorities are taking such a big hit on the jobs front in this pandemic?
What we've seen in this pandemic has been very clear that it has disproportionately impacted marginalized people. Someone who has to go into work in person and requires work that is, you've got to be there physically, they are harder hit than someone who can work from home. We've seen people who've got professional jobs, people who are in a certain level of position where they can work from home, be largely unaffected by the pandemic in a lot of ways. And we've seen frontline workers that are amongst the most vulnerable, workers that have had less opportunity, be the hardest hit. And that job loss number is staggering. And it really
it's incredible, isn't it? These numbers, 20% unemployment.
It's staggering, and it means that some of the people that have been the hardest hit are the ones that were already facing massive challenges. It really highlights the fact that if we don't put in place supports, that not only is it racialized people, a lot of women were in the service sectors that lost jobs. A lot of young people the report indicates it's a lot of young people that lost jobs as well. So the people in our society that are the most vulnerable, young people, women, racialized people, have been the hardest hit. So the existing challenges are now only going to be worse. So this is something we've got to take really seriously and put in place more support, more help for people. Why we say paid sick leave is vital, but we've got to make it better, and why we need to bring in clear help to people that have been disproportionately impacted.
Okay. I have an old sparring partner of yours coming up on my program next, Stephen Del Duca.
Oh, wow.
The Ontario Liberal Party. So I'll let you go, Mr. Singh. Very nice to hear from you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you're well. Thank you again.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Jagmeet Singh.
Hope you're well as well.
Is the leader of Canada's New Democrats. Stephen Del Duca is the leader of Ontario's Liberal Party. He's coming right up on the Rob Snow Show here on City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online, and the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it, what we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The Premier's news conference is in a little more than, an hour from now, about 1 o'clock. Is Premier Doug Ford's news conference. A gradual and regional reopening is to be announced by Premier Ford, lifting the state of emergency. Well, letting it lapse, really. It's set to expire tomorrow at midnight. But keeping the stay-at-home order in effect. The leader of Ontario's Liberal Party joins me now, Stephen Del Duca. He's in Vaughan this morning. Mr. Del Duca, good morning.
Good morning, Rob. Thanks for having me back on.
It's a great pleasure, sir. What would you like to hear from Premier Ford today in about an hour from now?
Well, I think the first thing that I'd like to hear from Doug Ford is clarity. And I think that throughout this pandemic, especially for the second wave, if I can call it that, literally since let's say around Labor Day, I think most people in Ontario have been very confused by mixed messaging and an incoherent approach, an uneven approach to dealing with the pandemic. So clarity to me is number one. Number two, I believe that Ontario's economic reopening and recovery needs to be led by small business, and small business need to be properly supported. We know that in particular sectors like tourism, hospitality, and restaurants and all of that stuff, but small business in general has just been horribly, horribly battered over the past 12 months. And there have been a lot of platitudes and a lot of nice things said from the podium by Doug Ford, but not a lot of meaningful action to back that up. And so I'm really hoping that he can put small business at the front edge of the recovery and stop just focusing on the big box friends that he has and the Amazons of the world and all that stuff, and make sure that our small business owners have a real shot to lead the recovery.
Where do you think there have been shortcomings there, Mr. Del Duca?
Well, I think everybody by now recognizes that the decision to allow big box stores to remain open, completely open, and sell both essential and non-essential items while small businesses were completely locked down, especially in this last month or so, has been particularly problematic. It's been very unfair to the small business owners who've literally tried their very best and have a greater degree to control the number of customers who come into their stores or their businesses than, let's say, some of the big box stores that we have out there that were allowed to just welcome in hundreds and thousands over time. And of course, we saw when the Ministry of Labor went in to do a bunch of blitzes in large businesses, big box, that they weren't necessarily playing by the rules. So to me, that's a glaring example of the unfairness and the lack of a level playing field. And Doug Ford cannot afford to duplicate that for the reopening that we're about to experience.
Okay, the Premier is under a lot of pressure, but there has not been very much movement on it. We'll see where this thing goes, but to do something about paid sick days. Now, you were a part of a government that did have paid sick days. It came rather late in the game in the previous Liberal government's tenure, and it wasn't the 10 paid sick days that people are calling for now. It was only 2 paid sick days. Where are you on the current battle for overpaid sick days, Mr. Del Duca?
So we've been calling on Doug Ford to reinstate paid sick days since last April, May. We've intensified those calls, as have others in the past couple of months. Obviously, it's coming from opposition politicians, but more importantly to me, that same call is coming from public health experts, mayors representing some of the hardest hit areas of the province. And for reasons that I'll never quite understand, Doug Ford has completely stubbornly, perhaps based on ideology or his own personal perspective, decided that it's not being necessary to do the right thing during the pandemic. And we know that there are tens of thousands of workers, many employed in essential industries that we are relying upon, who've had to keep going to work even while having symptoms of COVID, because the alternative for them is to not be able to afford food on their table or paying their bills. And to me, again, it's just being completely unconscionable.
Well, he points to the federal program, though, the Canada Sickness Response benefit, and there are 10 paid sick days there, sir. Sure, and Doug Ford's made a really awesome habit throughout this pandemic of passing responsibility and passing the buck to other levels of government across the board. But in this case, he needs to know, and I'm sure he does know, that the federal program, while helpful, does not solve the solution, does not solve the problem, especially during a pandemic. That program is capped at $500. It takes time. You have to apply for it. It's not seamless. For an individual who just needs a couple of days off while they're getting better or waiting for a test to see if they are COVID positive, it is actually not a suitable response, especially when Doug Ford has both the capacity, the wherewithal, and the money, because we know he's sitting on billions of dollars in pandemic relief that he's choosing not to spend. He's got all of that at his disposal to do the right thing, and he's refused to do so. So I don't think in the midst of a public health crisis, leaders like Doug Ford should be passing the buck continuously, but it is what Doug Ford has been doing throughout. Okay. Should there be a March break for the schools? What do you think? Yeah, I think there should be. I know that it's been a tough year and it's been very erratic, but I know, thinking of my own daughters, the one in grade 8, one in grade 4, they're scheduled to go back in school next Monday, a week from today. Next Tuesday, I guess, with Family Day. I think the system does need a chance, even if it's 1 week, to catch its breath. It's been a very tumultuous year, and so yes, I think there should be a March break. But even more importantly, Rob, what I really want to see is that Doug Ford doesn't just wait till the very last second to let parents, educators, and students know
what the plan is going to be. And we've also seen that throughout the pandemic, waiting right till the last second, so everybody's scrambling. So I think, yes, there should be a March break, but just as importantly, we need clarity on that too as soon as possible.
Okay, so we just had, as I mentioned, Jagmeet Singh on our program, the leader of Canada's New Democrats. This is certainly something that the Ontario New Democrats have called for, and that's an end to for-profit companies delivering long-term care in provinces like Ontario. What's the Ontario Liberal Party's position on no more for-profit long-term care homes in Ontario, Mr. Delta?
So the Ontario Liberal Party in about 2 weeks is going to be officially launching our consultation for the platform that we're going to be putting in front of the people of Ontario for the next election. And I know that long-term care and fixing long-term care is going to feature prominently in that work. So because we have not yet started the consultation, I'm not in a position today to say I know for sure exactly what we're going to be doing. Here's what I will say.
All right. There
is very clearly a serious problem in long-term care. The nature of the style of ownership, private versus not-for-profit, is a very important question there. It's not, to me, it's not as simple as saying we're going to flick a switch. If we end private care, it suddenly becomes a perfect system. I personally believe that two really important things have to happen in order to fix not long-term care, but fix seniors' care across the board. Number one, we have to find a way from moving away from the notion of institutionalizing seniors in large facilities across this province. It's not a model that I think is sustainable, and it's not a model that's good for seniors. And I think we need more strategies, more funding, and an easier to navigate system so seniors like my parents can actually age in place and stay home as long as possible to be healthy and to have the security and dignity that they deserve. So simply saying private versus public in long-term care, to me, it's like a Band-Aid solution that doesn't really fix the overall challenge that we face. And I don't want us to miss this moment to get it right, not as a Liberal Party or an NDP, but to miss this chance as Ontarians and as Canadians to not get this done the right way would be a real crime, because we might not get this kind of chance again. So stay tuned for more from Ontario Liberals about the private versus public, but I actually want the bigger conversation. I want my parents to have the choice they deserve. After all, they and people like them helped build this country and this province.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Del Duca.
Thanks so much, Robbie.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
This program is brought to you by Ignite